most grueling and entertaining event of the year. DSHS first ever student versus staff debate. The motion before us today is we will be getting rid of school uniform. On the affirmative, who are arguing for getting rid of school uniform, we have the warden. Jeremy the Heartless. And Shoma the Rover. And on the negative, give a round of applause for Evelyn. Sarah. And Louisa. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to speak with a warning clap at 4 minutes and then 2 claps at 5 minutes. Once they get to 5 minutes, I will completely cut them off. They can no longer speak. If you speak overtime, Miss Ward, I'm looking at you, I will slash your tyres. I am not kidding. I will slash your tyres. But without further ado, I would like to welcome the first speaker of the affirmative to open their team's case.
Thank you very much and welcome, and I'd like to tip our hat to our worthy adversaries and wish you the best of luck. I'd like to introduce our team to begin with, our coach, our legend who is able to juggle metaphors. He is able to wrestle with idioms and still walk away with perfect grammar. Coach Patrick McGonigal, thank you. I will be our first speaker, Shobes, and I'll be outlining why this house, Denmark Senior High School, should remove all uniform requirements. Our second speaker is the orator of elegance. He is the scholarly and cerebral Mr. Hartley. Mr. Hartley will speak in the affirmative of why Denmark Senior High School has already dispensed with this silly and archaic notion of why we need a uniform. Our final speaker is the undefeated champion of rebuttal, the queen of quotation, and who can correct your grammar whilst being able to make English dance and sing at the same time, Miss Ward. Now, before I begin, let us be clear on the proposition ahead of us, whether or not to remove school uniform requirements. Firstly, may I just define what a uniform requirement is? It is remaining the same in all cases, at all times. It's unchanging in form and character. Can I be clear about that? Unchanging in form and character. Really, what are our opponents suggesting? So, sorry to rain on your parade, Hammy, but I think this debate is already over. Government schools already do not have a formal dress code. We don't have a uniform requirement. Government schools have a dress code. So already the debate is done because a dress code is where it's at for government schools. And may I contend, lovely people of the audience, that don't you want to engage in free speech? Don't you want to be able to express yourselves? Surely the notion of having a uniform requirement goes against everything about the Denmark way. Do you want your rights taken away? I mean, what are our opponents suggesting, for heaven's sake? We all look like the North Korean army? Now, let's also start with the financial burden of having a uniform requirement. Shirts, jackets, pants, all at around about $60 a piece. So by the time we get outfitted, $300 for a uniform requirement. I mean, seriously, do you all want to work 4 hours of your hard-working time just to be able to put on a shirt? Let's do the maths. For your information, we might have had a maths specialist with us, so good luck with your rebuttal on this one. But a uniform is going to cost $300. Now, we would contend that best or less, Kmart might be able to outfit you with 5 shirts for $30, 3 sets of pants maybe for $50. So let's do the maths. We might have done it. $220 difference per student. Now, may I also contend that's for one student. What about me? I've got a family of 3 students. So if we're looking at $1,000 a year, isn't that going to be a bit cost prohibitive? So clearly our opponents may be from the wealthy side of the tracks. But in order to keep up appearances so we can all look like the North Korean army cadets, let's also consider what happens if a poor student lives between two homes. Let's suggest that the student has a couple of homes that they need to divide their time on. Now, it would suggest to me that I might need to get rid of a vital organ in order to support that cause to remain them in a uniform. So how can all this be reasonable? Oh, but we can hear what they might say going forward, that a uniform makes everybody equal. Who of you wants to be equal? I don't. Are they going to suggest I grow hair next? I want something that is going to be equitable and fair, not the same. It's not right that the wealthy get to make the rules, is it? So let's not drive a wedge between students by asking everybody to have a uniform requirement with gross inequity in terms of expense. Finally, audience, here's why Denmark Senior High School and this house should never have a uniform requirement. Uniforms require and reinforce gender roles. They are specific. And what about religious and cultural aspects? Gender neutral don't solve. So a gender neutral, if our opponents are going to suggest that that might be, unisex uniforms do not work. Body shapes all come in different sizes. And so if we have a gender neutral, it really won't fit. Students want to be able to express themselves. Surely that's what we all want to do. So similarly, if we abolish that and we take away specific garments like skirts, then it takes away your free speech and your ability to express yourself. So isn't this whole argument a bit of a moot point? Because our highest authority in the land, SCASA, our overarching body, the one that drives the rules, say uniforms are no longer required in ATAR exams. So all education, it says we do not need uniforms when we turn up to our exams. So I think perhaps that our opponents, being worthy as they may have lost touch with the common people. You and I. You and I are the common people. We don't want to be focused and looking like all the same. We don't want to look like the North Korean robots. We want to be able to express ourselves the Denmark way. Thank you.
Speaker on the affirmative. Now I'd like to welcome the first speaker on the negative to open their team's case.
Young people are the future. It is our responsibility to protect them for the continuation of our very society. In this speech, I will address the physical safety of our students, the emotional and psychological safety of our students, and the impact of not having uniforms on lower socioeconomic classes. We acknowledge that the current uniform system is not perfect. Oh, and just before I start that, I would like to point out that the motion is we would remove uniforms from the school, which implies that our school does have uniforms. And uniforms also describes the specific articles of clothing that we are required to wear every day. Your shirts, your jumpers. The current system is not perfect. In a perfect world, we would design better uniforms that are comfortable and safe in all environments of the school, like the D&T room, like the science room, like cooking rooms. And we would also institute a return system of uniforms when you graduate, so that you would have absolutely no cost towards uniforms for those who need it. I will start by rebutting a few of the points that the opposition has made. The first point they made was individuality and expression, that we should want to be different. You can be different outside of school. School is a learning environment. It is not for expressing yourself in that way. It's for learning. And also, in our school specifically, where we do have a uniform, we have the ability to self-express through accessorization or various variations to our uniform, like skirts, pants, things like that. The second point is that the opposition has stated that uniform requirements is that everything is unchanging in form. This is not what it means. That would be saying that the requirements must be unchanging in form, and they are. But that doesn't mean that the uniform that we wear is not a uniform. The third point was financial burden. I've addressed this in our return system, which will allow free uniforms for those who need it. We also have government funding for school requirements like uniforms. And if we did not have uniforms, the students would have a pressure to have a varied wardrobe throughout school, which is actually more expenditure on clothing than it would be in a uniform that can be like 3 shirts and a couple of pairs of pants. I will now move on to my points. My first point is that uniforms contribute to the physical safety of students. Being able to identify students in public or to easily distinguish between students and unknown people on school grounds is one of the major reasons why uniforms are important. Additionally, uniforms are, or will be in our model, designed to be safe in all areas of the school, some of which may be more dangerous in certain clothing, such as the design and technology room, the cooking room, or the science rooms. Imagine a normal day in a school with uniforms. What if a stranger were to come onto the school grounds? If the students were all wearing, say, navy blue, and the stranger was wearing really any other color, it would be much easier to say she doesn't even go here than if students were not wearing uniforms. Removing all dress requirements is dangerous. What if a student decided to wear a nice flowy top and then had to go to woodwork class? Her choice of clothing inhibits her safety in that arena. Uniforms remove this issue. We've all heard the stories from Mr. McConaughey himself about your flowy sleeves getting sucked into the sanding machine and your face gets sanded off. We don't want that for our students. The physical safety of our young people is paramount to the continuation of our very society. A uniform-free school environment would only add to the social and emotional strain on young people and inhibit their psychological or emotional safety. We all know that clothing is often a definitive indicator of wealth, of social position, and of different social groups or cliques. Lack of uniforms will only increase the divide between social groups and the pressure on individuals to conform to their clique in appearance. Peer pressure and self-consciousness would only be amplified by the removal of uniforms, and young people do not need the added pressure of having to choose the right outfit every day. Take Mean Girls, for example. The plastics, as they're called, are constantly under pressure to dress the right way, to wear expensive, stylish clothes, and on Wednesdays, wear pink. Imagine the strain this must put on them, not just financially, but emotionally and psychologically. The emotional safety of our young people supersedes the desire for self-expression, which can happen outside of school hours. Uniform-free schools disadvantage students from lower socioeconomic families. Under our models, uniforms would be freely available to be borrowed over the course of your schooling and returned after. In addition to this, there is government funding for school expenditure available to parents, which can be spent on uniforms. And in a town like ours, often you can get free hand-me-downs or fine uniforms at the op shop. The issue with uniform-free schools is that there is often excessive bullying of those who can't afford the latest fashions. When everyone has to wear the same uniform, the class differences evident in clothing are removed. It's an equalizer.
Thank you. I would now like to go on to the second speaker on the affirmative to continue their TSHS.
Are we starting? Comrades and citizens of Denmark Senior High School, I stand before you with a dream of a school with no bullying, with no class differences and no diversity. A dream that no matter who we are, when we open our eyes in the morning, when we don that uniform, we become indistinguishable from each other. As you slip on your shirt, you clothe yourself with the very ethos of our school. You will never be bullied or ostracized because all of your differences will be camouflaged under the net of mandated uniform. Finally, Denmark shall be united in one glorious future. Oh, hang on. I've somehow picked up the talking points for the opposition. If you'll forgive my foray into sarcasm, I've always wanted to know what it would be like. But there is a dark truth behind the comedy. You can learn a lot about the tool by the people who choose to use it. Let's play a little game of word association. I want you to picture in your mind for a moment, over the scope of history, what is the first pictures that pop into your mind when you think the word uniform? Does the phrase terrible people, stylish clothes fit the picture in your mind? There is a good reason for this. We communicate our values by our actions. And let me be very, very clear. Conformity is not our value. Let me say it again. Conformity is not our value. The leaders of this school did not and cannot decide the culture of this school. The wonderful community of Denmark did. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, each one of you brings something to this school, and the sum of your contributions is the culture of this school. Culture and belonging is not something which you buy and wear under threat of punishment. In case you think I'm making an absurd cultural comparison to terrible people, consider the history of uniform. The origin of the practice of school uniforms is in poor schools in England, with the purpose of identifying and shaming into submission the wearers. Later, expensive private schools adopted the policy as a way to showcase their wealth. Since these beginnings, uniform mandates are consistently associated with colonisation, cultural erasure, and lobbying by industrialists to fill the ranks of compliant workers in an industrialised society. As we speak, France is considering uniform mandates as a way to erase religious cultural identity. I ask the opposition, who proposed that school is not for expressing yourself. If school is not for expressing yourself, then what is it for? I note that our opponents are enthusiastic about the safety benefits of uniform mandates. Perhaps they have a point. Prisons have had great success with this. It is always handy to know who your inmates are. But back at Denmark Senior High School, there is a much better way to keep students safe. We know our students. And I note that our proposition is restricted to Denmark Senior High School. Adults are instantly recognisable, and if there was a problem with teenage-sized strangers wandering onto the campus, we would simply put up a fence. Dressing our students the same is possibly the worst control for this. Partly because if some teenager wished to come to our school without going through the enrolment process, they could just go and buy a uniform and camouflage themselves like the rest of us. I also note that when we are off campus, that uniforms are often detrimental to child safety. When you are on excursions, it is far safer to avoid uniform altogether. Advertising that you are a group of children away from your family and hometown while identifying that town is not an improvement in child safety. No doubt our talented but misguided opponents will appeal to your emotion on issues of bullying, class warfare and academic achievement. These are just opinions, but I bring you research. That was not, in fact, my marking. Anyone who uses the phrase, all the research shows, is lying to you. The legendary data scientist John Hattie considered thousands of studies and found no association between uniform and academic achievement. It did not even make the top 250 effects on student learning. In 2010, the University of Alabama looked at the effects of uniform on attendance, behaviour, drug use and academic achievement and found negative effects across all of those domains. Let me be clear, the opposition is suggesting that they would like a world where students use more drugs, attend less, have poorer grades and poorer behaviour, and this is incontrovertible. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
First speaker on the second speaker on the negative. I would now like to welcome the second speaker on the negative to continue their team's case.
I haven't started speaking yet. Give me a second to. Okay. We are all about safety and practicality at Denmark Senior High School. A school uniform allows for these values. In my speech, I will address 3 further substantive points building from my colleague's case. These are environmental consciousness of having uniforms, the importance of a learning environment, and also school pride. But first, I will address some frankly ridiculous points outlined by the enemy team. So I'm going to start with the first speaker, of course. He mentioned briefly that we all want free speech. And I'd just like to say how irrelevant that is to this debate, because we are not talking about speech, and we know that free speech is not entirely anything to do with uniforms at all, so we can disregard that point. He also said that it's a financial burden, $300. And my colleague has addressed that it is actually not a financial burden under our model because we'll have a return system and there are op shops. And furthermore, is not buying any wardrobe a financial burden? Is not the social pressures of having a different outfit every day going to make you go out and buy more clothes than 3 or 4 uniform shirts and a couple of pairs of pants? Is that a financial burden? Yes, it is. He also brought up the point of students that have 2 homes. That is completely irrelevant because despite uniform or not uniform, they're going to have to bring clothes between their 2 homes. So that's not a point that we need to address in this debate. He also said that equality is not what we want. We want equity. And we have addressed already that equity is not going to occur. My bad. We have addressed already that equality is what we need because equity doesn't happen without a uniform because there's always a financial difference. Not everybody in this room is getting the exact same income and being able to afford the exact same clothes. So if you have non-uniform clothes, that means that there's going to be a difference and there is not going to be equity. And as my colleague has stated, there is going to be some bullying at school. And yes, Mr. Hartley, there is going to be some bullying at school. The opposition has also talked about gender roles and how unisex uniforms don't work. I would like to point out that our current uniforms are not unisex. There's actually variations for women and men, so they actually do fit properly, which is a big point that you made. You also said that we're going to abolish skirts or something to that regard, and we're not. That's not what we're suggesting in our model. We're suggesting that we have a uniform such as the one that we are currently all wearing, which has a variation of bottoms that fit our uniform policy and not just, the exact same pants and the exact same shirt that are all unisex and all made boxy and ridiculous and don't fit anyone. Now, on to the second speaker. Most of that was quite hard to follow. His points were basically that we're turning into a prison or a dictatorship. And I'd like to reference a common phrase that I have heard many times, that when somebody has to bring Hitler into a debate, they have already lost. Now, he also said that uniforms are there for the purpose of identifying people. And yes, that is exactly what we're trying to say. He is actually adding to our point by saying that because uniforms are here so that we know that everybody in the environment of our school is supposed to be here, and also when we're on excursions that everyone is supposed to be here. And then he said that if people wanted to break into our school, they could go and buy a uniform. But this contradicts exactly what his first speaker has said, which is that uniforms are too expensive. So if somebody wanted to break in, they could not afford a uniform. I will now get on to my points. The first one, the environment, is a huge consideration for this debate. Fast fashion is a massive problem in our society, and as my colleague has mentioned, social pressure exists to have a varied wardrobe and the latest fashion, especially in schools where young people are under a lot of social and personal pressure. Do not let our society become corrupted by the get in loser, we're going shopping mentality. Uniforms. My second point, uniforms contribute not insubstantially to schools' learning environment. It is important that students can focus wholly on their education and not be distracted by such trivial things as what someone is wearing or wardrobe travesties, such as the one right here. Our education is incredibly important, especially in our formative years, so we should never let such a superficial thing as what somebody is wearing distract us from our studies. Finally, we as a school should be proud to be part of such a noble institution. Uniforms bring us together and provide a safe and inclusive environment for all students. For these reasons, I am very proud to negate.
I would now like to welcome the third speaker on the above to close their team space.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here before you today to reiterate the definition of the term because I think we've lost the thread a little. Remember that a uniform requirement is remaining the same in all cases at all times, unchanging in form and character. And the point made by my learned colleague here was that we actually do not have a uniform requirement, we have a dress code. which, yes, it has a logo attached to it, but I look around this audience and I see hoodies and I see jackets and I see things that were deliberated by students directly. I see leavers tops, some that have got ridiculous names like Sasa written on the back of them, which are not actually even real words, and yet this school embraces that opportunity. Okay, so we give you voice. We give you opportunity to be individuals. We do not demand of you that you are the North Korean army. We need to be very, very clear about that. So my colleagues have actually addressed several key points today. They have talked about the reality that what we have as a dress code and not a uniform requirement for everybody to be identical. The financial burden is a real one, and your return system is simply not going to work. To begin with, if we're talking about equality, which was such an important point made by my opposition, then it is not equal when some will go and purchase a brand new, look amazing, turn up, everything fits beautifully, and some will get the hand-me-down from generations gone by from this return system that goodness knows what it looks like after it's been through 3 or 4 different characters. That is not going to be equal. And if we're worried about the financial impost that might cost, you actually have to be thinking about the fact that you look around and you see amazing Nike footwear as against lower level shoes today. You see that diversity today. The economy will be obvious in the school regardless of whether they're wearing the same top or not. We talked about gender diversity because in this community, that is such a valued thing, and that opportunity for young people to make sure that they are treated as individuals rather than as a collective. The class difference, the safety matters, all of those things really are of big concern. The alarmist reaction about what will we do if we have strangers in our midst in Denmark, where most of us don't even lock our doors at home. I don't think that that's actually something we need to be worried about. I think an important thing to point out, and I do acknowledge the expertise that I have to my left here, people probably know that this group won Country Week and they did an amazing job and they got $250 for their effort. And do you want to know what they did with it? They donated it to the school for school ties. And so, no, you did that. They came to me and said, this is what we would like. Now, can you think of anything more conformist and constricting than a school tie, which was their choice? They actually chose to do that. So, in closing, I want to point out one very important point that, yes, you're probably right, that when you have to reference Hitler, then you're actually on the losing side. Your group actually referenced Hitler because it was not said by my colleague, and we can maybe go back to the video to actually watch that. I don't know. And I think that if we're worried about the environment, we have to face a hard truth, and that is that unless we all choose to come to school naked, not something that I would recommend, especially in this climate, everything you wear has got an environmental impact. And so do be mindful of that fact as well. Thank you, and I close on behalf of my team.
I would now like to welcome the third speaker on the negative disclosure in today's debate.
All laid out.
Get ready, guys.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to remind everyone of what the motion is, because although our opposition, they're great, they're absolutely very intelligent people, they just can't seem to understand the nuance of a simple statement. They're misinterpreting the very motion itself. The motion before us today is that this House should remove all school uniform requirements. They define school uniform requirements as the requirements must be uniform. They must be all the same. We are defining them as requirements for our uniform. because we are technically, yes, wearing a uniform. It is a dress code. Those are the requirements. And these are only there to guide us to wear what is best for our safety and for the quality of our learning. Even if the opposition was correct about the definition of uniform requirements, they say that this school does not have it, but the motion itself says that we should remove the uniform requirements, which is saying that we do have it. So even with that definition, it contradicts itself, showing how the opposition has clearly not prepared enough to actually read this motion. The word uniform comes from the Latin word unus, meaning one. This ties closely to the word unity, a quality that we strive to achieve for at this school. This is why we disagree with this motion. My colleagues have argued for the principles of safety, equality, and the environment. All amazing points. Before reiterating these arguments and bringing this debate to a close, I will address the points of clash and prove to you why our arguments weigh so much better. I was going to structure this debate a lot better in higher quality, but this argument doesn't really require that. The arguments that the oppositions have presented haven't been as well structured, so I see no point in... I see that I might as well lower myself to their standard. With all due respect. Our opponents are intelligent. They know what they're talking about. And the second speaker has mentioned and alluded to a lot of events and that we referred to. The third speaker then said that they never mentioned that, but they're intelligent enough to know what the implications are. So yes, they did mention it and they did lose the debate. Main points have been about safety for when we are outside of school. Our opponents have completely disregarded safety for within school. We have specifically stated the point of what if someone is wearing something unsuited for example, metalwork, woodwork, sport. They have failed to address these requirements. With the school uniform that we have, it is ensuring that we are wearing what is best for our safety so our faces don't get sanded off. Isn't that right, Mr. McConaughey? Again, the opposition has talked about the groups that have used uniforms for detrimental purposes. I'd like to ask, where else do we see uniforms today outside of school? Does anyone go for a sports team that has purple and white, or maybe even blue and yellow? That is a uniform. That is a uniform showing pride in who we are going for, what we are united as one to achieve. We wear this uniform because we want to be associated with this great school. We want to be known as Denmark Senior High School students because of what this school has done for us. The opposition has also stated we've also gone back and forth on the economics of uniforms as well as the environmental impacts. They state that even if their school uniform, this will still happen. We're not talking about the absolute extremes. We are not saying that it's going to be completely eradicated. We are talking about the best solution. And the best solution is where these things are minimized, not where they're just ignored completely for, oh, I want to wear a pretty shirt today and look kind of different from someone else. And finally, to summarize our arguments, my first speaker has explained to you why no uniform inhibits physical and psychological safety by having no regulations in environments that are severely risky, for example, metalwork, and having a disparity in clothing choice and quality, stratifying this school, causing division. This is currently a division right now. Do we want division? No, we do not. My second speaker has elaborated on the benefits of uniform, promoting school pride, highlighting the importance of a cohesive environment, and promoting sustainable clothing practices in our school through creating a cyclical return system.
That was a very entertaining debate. Thank you both. Miss Ward, for everyone's information, actually spoke to the least amount of time. Wow, that was shocking. But
my car tires.
yeah, we'll just have a quick thing. Who reckons that the affirmative should have won? Put your hand up if you reckon affirmative should have won. Put your hand up if you reckon a negative should have won. Well, portion of people say there's a few people who didn't put their hands up, but what I can see from what we can say now, that a negative won this debate. Oh no, but yeah, well done. Thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time.